Hello everyone, this is the next class in our series on Chinese medicine theory and diagnostics. So today we're going to start an intro to facial diagnosis, which is, as many things in Chinese medicine, a very deep, ancient, rich practice. So this is just kind of dipping our toes in. And my name is Michelle Morisi, for those who are not familiar, licensed acupuncturist and practitioner of Chinese medicine in the greater Providence, Rhode Island area. So there are many different sources and on facial diagnosis, and different sources have different interpretations. So this image here is just one example, and as with a lot of things in Chinese medicine, you'll hear some differences depending on different styles. So with facial diagnosis, it's kind of, I think, even more varied than things like related to the tongue or the pulse. But this is another way of diagnosing through observation, just like looking at the tongue or listening to the pulse. And it involves looking at both the physical structure, shape, and size of the face, as well as like the texture, color of the skin, seeing if where there may be wrinkles, if there are wrinkles, where there may be redness or discoloration, swelling, acne, lesions, or just kind of birthmarks or marks on the body, on the face. And this includes the whole face. It also includes up to the hairline, and also the ears, the jaw, even like kind of where the neck meets the jaw. And there's three aspects to looking at the face related to heaven, earth, and man or human. So that's pretty core in Chinese medicine view, looking at things related to those three. And so there's a few different ways we can look at the face from the perspective of those three aspects. So in one sense, heaven is correlated or related to the Shen, or the spirit, which is typically seen in the eyes. So that light in the eyes, that clarity that when you look at someone, you really feel like you can see them and they're seeing you. So that's the heaven aspect. And then earth is the signs on the face of the physiological processes going on. And the human aspect is the actual physical structure of the face itself. And then we can also look at the face from those three, that perspective, with heaven being the kind of top part of the face, so from the eyebrows to the hairline. And this can relate to so this area of the face can represent our early life, showing signs of aging first before other parts of the face. And then the middle of the face, from the eyebrows down to the tip of the nose, can be related to the middle stages of life and to the earth. So typically, if the size of a portion of the face is longer or larger, it's seen as meaning longevity or something that is meaning good health, or just like a good part of the life. So it's seen that if that middle part of the face is longer or larger, it indicates that you will have a good middle age. And likewise, if the bottom third of the face, like the chin, the nose down to the chin, is longer, that's seen to denote having a like healthy, happy old age. And that that lower third of the face is related to human. So yeah, so there's lots of different things to look for, and ways to kind of divide up the face. And naturally, people at different stages of life are more prone to different things. Of course, older people more prone to wrinkled skin, and younger people to acne. But there may be even things, in a child that you can determine things from. And we also have to take into account, as always, when looking at someone, take into account their heritage and how that may play a role. So looking at things in relation to them. So one person's pallor might be, dark for another person, and vice versa. And certain people more prone to wrinkling than other people, and lots of things can be hereditary as well. So it may not be something that happened in their lifetime causing that sign. So we'll start with the top of the face, from the hairline to the eyebrows, which, as I said, is related to heaven, the heaven aspect. And so a note about the hair is that the kidneys are said to control the hair on the head. So having strong kidneys means that you will probably have a full head of hair, thick hair. And so this can often be hereditary, which the kidneys are related to things that are hereditary, or the Jing, which is translated as essence, which can kind of be related to our DNA. So having a strong head of hair can signal to the kidney's health, and vice versa. Having like weaker kidney qi, or deficiency in that regard, could lead to balding of the hair. And a receding hairline is said to be a gallbladder imbalance, as in particular, the temple areas relate to the gallbladder, as well as to the sanjiao, or triple burner. And those are also areas where those channels run. And a dry red forehead indicates a bladder imbalance, whereas many horizontal wrinkles, so we can see on this person's forehead some horizontal wrinkles for sure, several. So that would indicate a spleen imbalance, versus one, if it were just one deep horizontal wrinkle, this would be a small intestine imbalance. So this may be because, the spleen relates to a lot of our mental thought and study and worry and rumination, and so we tend to, kind of furrow our brow when we're pensive or we're worried. And so this can tax the spleen and perhaps lead to these wrinkles. The small intestine also kind of has a big mental role, more so in sorting and trying to sift out details and maybe can become a little hyper focused and create this deep wrinkle. And then between the eyebrows, so the space between the eyebrows, if we see one vertical wrinkle, that indicates a stomach imbalance versus two vertical wrinkles, which it looks like this person has, indicates a liver imbalance. So that kind of scrunching together of the brows maybe indicates a person has a lot of anger that which can harm the liver. And one horizontal line at the bridge of the nose, so if there were just one line here running horizontally, that would be a heart, indicative of a heart imbalance. And other sources note that regarding the forehead, this relates to digestive health. So, we definitely have mentioned organs involved in the digestion here, the spleen, the small intestine, the stomach. And so if you see like breakouts in this area, that could indicate poor digestion due to poor diet, or which can also be aggravated by stress, lack of sleep. So those are some things to look out for on the forehead. Moving on. Actually, a couple more notes about the forehead before we move on. In particular, the temples. Some sources say that this area also relates to the kidneys and the bladder. And so if you have bladder issues or like frequent UTIs, you may see acne in that area. Also, if you are taking medications that aren't agreeing with you, causing adverse side effects, it could also be seen in this area on the temples. A lot of medications take a toll on the kidneys, so that could be why that is. And another note about between the eyebrows, with that showing signs of liver imbalance, toxins from emotions like we were talking about with anger, and also poor diet can impact that area as well, since the liver is responsible for processing those toxins. So moving on to the middle portion of the face, from the eyebrows to, for now we'll just talk about the eyebrows and the eyes, and then move on to the bottom portion of this middle portion. So don't have too much more detail about this, but the eyebrows are said to relate to the kidneys on this like inner part of the eyebrows. So towards the nose, it's supposed to relate to the kidneys, the middle to the spleen, and then this outer area to the sanjiao or triple burner. So the triple burner meridian ends around the edge of the outer edge of the eyebrows. And as for the eyes, the upper lid here, is said to relate to the spleen. So the middle portion of the eyebrow and the upper eyelid to the spleen. So any issues with the spleen would be indicated by issues there. And then if you have swelling in the eyelids, that signifies a kidney imbalance. In this case, it wouldn't be like a red hot swelling. So a non-red swelling would indicate a kidney imbalance. So something to do with fluids being improperly retained in that area. And the eyes themselves, the pupil is related to the heart, the iris to the liver, and the sclera, so the iris being the colored part, and then the sclera, this white, the whites of the eyes relate to the lung. Again, I'm not really too sure much more detail on these aspects. Perhaps with the lung, that relates a lot to our immune health, and so perhaps if you have allergies or something like that, you might get you might see it in the eyes, in the whites of the eyes, but I'm not exactly sure about that. And so let's move on to the below the eye, the nose, and the cheeks. So the bottom half of this earth part of the face. So below the eye, if there is like a kind of yellow drooping appearance, this is indicative of a stomach imbalance. If it's blue, indicative of a kidney imbalance. I would also say if it's kind of black or dark, that would be indicative of a kidney imbalance as well. If it's puffy and brownish, a liver imbalance. And if it's like this huge sac, then a large intestine imbalance. So this area is linked to bodily fluids. So this can also indicate an issue with the circulation of body fluids, or a lack of body fluids, a lack of hydration may actually lead to puffiness or bags or dark circles under the eyes. Stress can also have that effect. And for the nose, this it's said to that the lung opens into the nose, so each yin organ is said to open into an orifice. So for the lung, it's the nose, and so issues in general with the lung, like I was talking about, immune health, allergies, sinus issues, that can at least in part relate to an issue with the lung and the Wei Qi, or the Qi that kind of interacts, is our first point of interaction with the outside world, or some translated as the protective Qi. The tip of the nose itself, some say it relates to the spleen, and so if you see issues there, it indicates a spleen issue. Some sources say it relates to the heart, and redness, blackheads, oiliness, or breakouts on the tip of the nose could be a sign of heart issues, perhaps like high blood pressure or high cholesterol, or not, if not necessarily at that moment, then being predisposed or precursors to that. And as for the nostrils of the nose are said to relate again to the lung, and the nasolabial fold, this kind of line you can very faintly see on this person from the nose down to the lips, relates to the gallbladder. And for that, it may be because, similar with that like wrinkle between the eyebrows corresponding to the liver, from anger or grimacing, perhaps can cause more of a deep line there, which again, the gallbladder and liver are paired organs that are affected most deeply by anger. And as for the cheeks, if there is a green tinge to the cheeks, this indicates a liver imbalance. A yellow or gray color indicates constipation. And red cheekbone areas indicate, so higher would indicate a heart and small intestine imbalance. Whereas red cheeks in general may indicate a stomach inflammation, and breakouts in this area on the cheeks may be due to allergies or sinus issues. And finally, the bottom half of the face, so below the nose, down to the chin, even down to where the jaw meets the neck, relates to the human aspect. And the mouth, so the lung opens into the nose. For the spleen, it's the mouth or the tongue. And so the spleen in general is related to the mouth. Around the mouth is related to the liver, and as well as the upper lip. The lower lip is related to the large intestine. The lower jaw is also, or the lower gums and teeth are also related to the large intestine. And the corner of the mouth is related to the stomach and the duodenum, so that's a part of the intestines. So why that part in particular, I'm not sure, but the stomach makes sense to me because there is a stomach point right there on the corners of the mouth. The stomach is also related to that upper gum and teeth, as a side note. And then the chin relates to the kidneys. So like we were talking about with the hair and the kidneys and longevity, and so the chin, like we were saying before, is related to the later stages of life. So bigger chin is said to perhaps indicate either having a longer later life or a happy, healthy later life. And if there is a tinge of color on the left, so on the patient's left, that indicates a lung imbalance, whereas on the right side would indicate a kidney imbalance. Also note about the mouth, sores in the mouth could be due to stomach, like ulcers within the stomach, or having too much kind of cold food, which could be literally cold in temperature, could be energetically cold, typically fruits, vegetables, raw food, is cooling, and dairy is typically cooling. So too much of that can cause the stomach to overwork and then go into overdrive and produce too much heat, manifesting as these ulcers. Heat in the heart also can cause particularly sores on the tongue. And so that's another thing to look out for. And also note about the chin that the jawline and the chin area relate to the endocrine and reproductive systems. So if the hormones are out of whack, this may lead to like acne or issues in that area. So there could be, for people who have a menstrual cycle, perhaps there's some irregularity or some issue with their menstrual cycle, and or stress, stress-related issues. So we're gonna stop there for now, and to be continued more, but that is our intro to facial diagnosis part 1. And once again, my name is Michelle Morisi. If you have any questions or would like to reach out to me, there's my contact information. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for Qigong, which is up next. So I will be logging off and logging back on for some Qigong class.